This is the Action Cast, the only podcast that isn't sure if our accent is Southern United States or Irish, maybe. And now, our feature presentation. Whoa, that got out of control. Uh-oh. All right, well, hey, everybody, we're live. This is the Action Cast, and my name is Joe Drilling, and we got a little bit of a light rotation tonight. Alex might show up later, but right now with me is Mr. Ethan Chang.
One of the reasons I most like going to IKEA is that I get to try some fresh Swedish meat every time.
There is plenty of Swedish meat to be had in this movie that we're talking about tonight, and also with a fondness for the Swedish chef, at least, is Mr. Anthony Rogers.
You say I'm a guest, but actually I want to be known as From an Idea by Anthony Rogers.
From an Idea, yeah, sure.
Quite possibly the greatest thing I've seen in a credit sequence in a long time.
That actually, what's funny is I recently saw a movie. Maybe we'll do a quick... I kind of wanted to see if Alex does show up or if Eric decides he's going to come. I think at this point, Eric's probably a lost cause, but...
He's probably asleep, yeah.
Very quickly, since you said that, I did see recently, I saw Studio 666, which has a credit for From an Idea by Dave Grohl. So...
Oh, nice.
I mean, I put a review of it on Letterboxd. It's if the idea of the Foo Fighters doing a lesser Evil Dead movie is appealing to you, I think you know what you're gonna get if you go see that movie. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of movie that feel like I knew exactly what it was going to be going in. I went in, it was the movie I thought it was going to be. It was totally fun. It wasn't the new greatest thing in the history of movies, but it was basically the Foo Fighters fucking around and making a horror movie for a little longer than it needed to be. But it has Dave Grohl murdering people with cymbals and stuff, like the instrument, the drum cymbal, not like symbolic.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's the movie you think it is, and if you think that you'll enjoy it, you should go see it, and if you don't, you shouldn't. That's my thorough review of Studio 666.
Pretty good review. That's a very helpful review, actually.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I looked at it and I was like, well, I like the Foo Fighters. They're not my favorite band or anything, but I like the Foo Fighters. I like Dave Grohl, and I like, gory horror movies with lots of practical effects and tons of blood. So I'll check it out. And like I said, it's exactly the movie I thought it was going to be. So, yeah. I don't know. It's been, we missed last month, which means I feel like we should have news, but I also feel like there's not been any news that I felt was like, oh, this is something that I need to talk about in terms of, action movie news. So we can get right into the thing unless anybody else has an I watched the thing or a news item that they do want to talk about before we, actually, you know what? I guess yesterday there was news. Yesterday, William Hurt died. And I guess he's not super well known for action movies, but he is just absolutely fantastic in A History of Violence, which I think a lot of people would count as one of Cronenberg's best, I guess. It's one of his most mainstream. But, pour one out for William Hurt.
Yeah, he's also great in, obviously, Kiss of the Spider Woman. He won an Oscar.
Right.
I haven't seen that in years. I'm not sure. I feel like that movie might be a little problematic, but also, I don't know. I need to see it again.
A little problematic?
Well, he's a white guy playing a Mexican, right? In that movie, or
I don't think so.
Latino of some stripe, I think, right? Isn't that the?
But he's playing I think what we would now say as a trans woman. That's what I remember.
Yeah, that
maybe
right.
A not completely out trans woman.
Right.
And Raul Julia's in it and is great. And then also Broadcast News that's a great movie.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Which he won. Did he win Oscars for any of those? He won for Kiss the Spider Woman, I think. And he was nominated for Broadcast News and A History of Violence, which of course people were like, he's only in A History of Violence for 4 minutes or whatever, and it's like, yeah, but it's a great performance. Like he's fantastic in that movie Brohim. Like this is, I mean, that's a good movie. I like that movie a lot. I think, for me, Cronenberg's weirder stuff is a little more appealing than like History of Violence and Eastern Promises, which are both movies that I do like. I mean, Eastern Promises has the naked bathhouse fight, which is...
Yeah, I haven't seen that, I think, since I saw it in theaters. I should see that again.
So I haven't rewatched, I have it on DVD. I haven't rewatched it in a long time, but I have occasionally just gone back and rewatched the naked bathhouse fight because it's so good. It's such a good... Like, it's not, I think what I really love about that is, sort of contradictory to what we talk about when we talk about action movies in terms of like the fights are well choreographed and they have these like fancy spinning kicks and they have these like that fight feels like a real fight. There's a lot of like grappling for position and like squirming around on the floor and trying to, and like struggling and things that you don't see in movie fights because that's not how real fights are. Like that fight is more like a real fight. And
I remember it being short too, like a short explosive burst of violence.
Yeah. Same thing with the scene that William Hurt is in History of Violence. Like they talk for a little while and then there's like an explosive moment of violence that lasts for like 30 seconds, but is like brutally, I mean, that's all the violence in those two particular Cronenberg films, right? Is like, there's like, you get uncomfortable for a minute and then there is a outburst of like really graphic violence and then it's over like just as fast as it started, which is part of what, Cronenberg, I mean, whatever it is, I'm glad that he's getting recognized for it. I actually just saw an article, and I guess it must have been because there's like an anniversary or something coming up, but I just saw an article about Crash, the David Cronenberg movie, obviously not the sappy Best Picture Oscar bait.
Can I say?
Right.
Did that win or was it it did win?
It won Best Picture.
Oh yeah.
I've
never seen
Best Picture. It's bad.
It's bad.
Good movie.
It's
I've never
real
seen
bad.
it, I will not. I'm 100% sure without seeing it that movie's more problematic than Kiss of the Spider Woman.
Probably, which is weird because it's way more recent, but it feels super pandering in a lot of...
Ethan, I think you would watch it and declare it to be the best movie that came out that year. Whatever year it is.
I
would
think
have
that
to-
probably the other movie that's called Crash is the best movie of that year.
Well,
maybe.
those are two different years, so...
Oh, well, yeah, but I mean...
But yeah, it was about how the other...
title Crash is one for me.
Right. So now I'm curious. So, but the article I saw and read was about how like Crash, the Cronenberg Crash, is it was so shocking at the time, and there were people who tried to get it pulled from theaters, and this, that, and the other. Let's see here. So it was 2006. Or so it's 2006 Oscars. Would that be 2006 movies? Or I never know how they like. Is that the ceremony that happened in 2006? Therefore, it's 2005 movies, or is it the Oscars for 2006? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and I don't know.
I think
the
the year that they say is the year that it's actually held.
So I would be looking at 2005. Let's see, awards. Academy Awards. Okay, so 2006 was The Departed year, was the Martin Scorsese like booby prize year. Not that The Departed isn't good. I like The Departed a lot, but like if Martin Scorsese was going to win Best Picture, he made a lot of movies that were better than The Departed. That's all I'm going to say. All right. So if we look at movies from just because we're just
that were as long as The Departed, though.
Right. Well, I mean, yes, he's made a lot of long, like Casino's super long, Goodfellas is super long.
That's true. I just don't know what his longest movie is.
I don't know. I'm not looking that up. But 2005, Batman Begins. Let's see here. Brokeback Mountain, Walk the Line, Capote, Cinderella Man, Syriana, Constant Gardener, Memoirs
year
of a
was like from
Geisha. I feel like
from the
Memoirs of a Geisha.
decade.
Memoirs of a Geisha was like I remember really liking the book, and I feel like the movie was bullshit. But I don't think I actually saw it because I just heard so many bad things about the adaptation that I just skipped it. Hustle and Flow, Kung Fu Hustle. If you put those together, you get Kung Fu Hustle and Flow, which that's a movie I would like to see.
So this was the year that 3-6 Mafia accepted the
Yeah, it's hard out here for a pimp.
Definitely the best moment in Oscars history, where they go to the wrong podium and shout out everyone, go over time, shout out George Clooney, basically because he was nice to them in the green room.
That sounds right. That was also the
The Departed is like 9th in terms of the length of his movies. I was way off.
King Kong, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Batman Begins. I don't know if I said Batman Begins already. But like the Assault on Precinct 13 remake, which is definitely not as good as the original, but is like a perfectly cromulent remake of that movie.
You're talking about movies that Crash was better than?
No. Well, also
no,
not necessarily. I'm talking about movies that came out in the same year. I'm just saying, like,
okay.
Constantine, which I know Bryce has a soft spot for. Yeah, I mean, there's I don't know. I feel like the 2000s were. Oh, Sin City came out that year, which, like, I don't know, man. Robert Rodriguez has been hit or miss, but Sin City, the first one, the last time I watched it, at least, I still quite enjoyed it. There's a lot of fun performances in that. It's visually striking. That's definitely a better movie than fucking Crash. Fuck, man. Sidney Pollack made a movie that year. The Interpreter was with Nicole Kidman and Sean Penn, where she's like an interpreter for someone at the UN and is like targeted for knowing too much or whatever. Like, that was totally fine. That not very good Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie came out that year. Although I will say, that movie is not a great adaptation, but Mos Def as Ford Prefect is pretty good. Kingdom of Heaven, a movie that I intentionally went to sleep during when I saw it in the theater. You know what? 2005 might be the worst year for movies in the last 20 years. Holy balls. Mindhunters, that Rennie Harlan movie with Christian Slater and Val Kilmer, came out that year. An action favorite, Clifton Gonzalez.
What I'm noticing is that I've basically not seen a single one of these movies, and I think the reason is you said this was what year?
2005.
Yeah, I think in 2005 that was the last year that I was in film school. And film school basically killed my interest in movies for 10 years. Except for movies from like the 70s through the 90s.
I'm a film school dropout, so I switched my major after 1 year. I couldn't handle it. Well, I also went to, like, I think the only experimental film school in the United States. So, like, my entire intro to film class. Yeah, well, my entire intro to film class was watching, like, Stan Brakhage movies.
Was it at
University of Wisconsin? Yeah, Milwaukee, not Madison.
Yeah, I might be wrong about this. I think a friend of mine teaches at that school in the experimental film program.
That's very possible.
He may have moved to another school. I haven't talked to him in a while.
But it was a lot of like. Yeah, we're going to watch Stan Brakhage. We're going to watch, it's just,
X-Men getting sick 6 times.
It's just, I mean, it's hard. You just kind of get to the point where you're like, none of this means anything. Like, I don't, like, what are we doing? Like, I didn't go to film school so I could make, like, abstract fucking, like, you guys ever seen Stan Brakhage's Window Water Baby moving?
I probably saw it in
you would remember, because it is literally a film he made of one of his children, maybe his first child being born, and you see the whole thing.
Okay.
And it's just like, all right, all right. Wedding Crashers came out that year. That's a comedy, mainstream comedy that I liked. All right, but this is like there was a lot of bad shit that year. Really, really bad shit. Oh man, that's the year that the Sound of Thunder movie finally like got shit into theaters. And like, do you guys remember that whole thing where like someone was trying, Peter Hyams was and Warner Brothers were trying to make a Sound of Thunder, which is the Ray Bradbury story where the butterfly effect thing is like they go hunt like there's a time machine, they go hunt dinosaurs. It's like famous science fiction story, and they were trying to make a movie out of it for however long. And Edward Burns was in it, and Ben Kingsley was in it, and like it was this started as this big budget Warner Brothers like tentpole, like summer tentpole was the intention, but like they ran out of money, I guess, and it was supposed to come out in like 2003 or something, and eventually they just like, I don't know, like cobbled it together somehow at the and just like released it super low key into theaters, like barely any screens, and apparently it's just like infamously fucking terrible. I've never watched it, but it's apparently just borderline like unwatchable shit, and it's kind of surprising that it ever came out. Transporter 2 was that year. I mean, I don't know. My point is History of Violence was that year. There you go. History of Violence. That movie's definitely better than Crash, for sure.
Is it better than this week's movie though?
I would say so.
Yeah, probably.
I would say so. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang came out that year.
But like your comparison, which you haven't made yet, but you will, to the Man with No Name trilogy, like those are great movies that are better than this movie. This is a very solid movie. I have no complaints about this movie.
This is a solid B, like not a B movie. I mean a B movie, but also like a B movie.
Right.
Yeah. Feels like kind of a B plus. They got some pretty good like big money stunts and set pieces.
That is the thing that I found most surprising about it, honestly, was let's get into the movie proper. Unless anybody else has any things that are like news related or whatever. I watched a thing. Anybody?
I do not know.
Not really. No.
Okay. All right. So this week's movie is Companeros, which
also known as Vamos a Matar Companeros.
Yes. And
this one only has 2 titles.
This one only a lot of Italian movies. We were talking about this before we started recording. There's a lot of Italian movies that have a shitload of titles. And a lot of times when they come out, when weird Italian movies come out in the United States, they sort of like append them to an existing franchise. Like there's an Italian movie called Lady Terminator, which is not at all related to the Terminator movies, but it's like about a lady robot who kills people, and it was years before Terminator 3, and so they released it in the US as Lady Terminator.
Is it any good?
Define good.
It's all right to say no.
You might have fun with it. It would be fun to like watch with friends and riff on. It's a low budget Italian action movie. So
all right.
Not like this movie. This movie is a high budget Italian action comedy western. Directed by Sergio.
Lady Terminator is not Italian, it's Indonesian.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Shows what I know.
I may have seen this years ago, but yeah, I don't remember anything from it if I did.
So
not even the tiny turtle?
What?
Sorry. Not even the tiny turtle?
Oh, there's a lot of tiny turtles in this movie.
That's true.
There are a lot of tiny turtles in this movie. So apparently, okay, so this movie...
They're babies.
This movie... Babies! This movie was directed by Sergio Corbucci, and is apparently a remake of the film he made immediately previous to it, called The Mercenary.
I didn't know. Oh, I think when I was reading about this, I thought that The Mercenary, and I had forgotten about this when I said it had 2 titles. I thought that The Mercenary was another title for this movie, but I guess not.
No, it's a different movie, and apparently it's meant to be a remake of this, although Wikipedia says it's also like part of a loose trilogy, similar but not congruent to the Man with No Name trilogy.
Mm-hmm. So,
like, I don't want to belabor the point, so I guess I'll just get it out of the way right away. This movie is, especially at the beginning, it feels a lot like it's a lesser For a Fistful of Dollars. But Corbucci is not as accomplished a director as Sergio Leone, and try as he might, Franco Nero just does not have the fucking screen presence of Clint Eastwood. Not remotely. And
he doesn't, but what I'll say about screen presence is what I didn't remember. The last time I saw this movie was, I think it might have been like 11 or 12 years ago. I didn't remember how much presence Tomas Milian has. I feel like he's really good in this movie.
He is.
And
he is.
Yeah, and he's got like, you know, second billing. But watching him in this movie, I felt like I was surprised that he's not a bigger name. Because I think he's.
I mean, did he make a bunch of just like Italian movies that we don't, that we haven't seen?
He did make a ton of Italian movies, but he wasn't Italian. He was Cuban American,
yeah.
Or I think Cuban, but apparently also an American citizen. But I guess didn't really have much of an American film career. Like he's like a lot of, you know, B movie actors from the like 80s. He does have credits going into the 2000s, like where you kind of wouldn't expect, or like he was in Traffic, I guess.
Yeah. JFK,
Oz. Like, I feel like every actor was in Oz.
Every male actor in the universe was in Oz. That was, you know, active when that show was being made.
He was in Amistad, so he was in a Spielberg.
There you go.
But yeah, I feel like he's great in this movie. He's got great presence, and he also kind of has like not really a Hollywood look today, where like, you know, like all the big actors now like they're like built like athletes,
right?
But he has the look of somebody who could have been like a leading man, you know, type presence in the 70s or 80s for sure.
Yeah. Also, he was in an episode of Murder, She Wrote, so you know he arrived. You know.
Yes.
Yeah. I haven't been in that.
There you go. So,
but I want to push back on the slightly, because I think Franco Nero had. I thought he was a lot of fun to watch at the beginning of the movie. Like
he is. He's a lot of fun. I'm not saying he's not.
Like not. Yeah. I mean, certainly not an Eastwood, but like, I don't know. He was captivating, for lack of a better word, like pretty much immediately.
Franco Nero, like Eastwood in those movies, like it's kind of amazing what he does with one facial expression on the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whereas like Franco Nero is like the man of 1,000 faces. Like his face is doing all the work.
Yes, but it's similar. Eastwood in his younger days and in the Italian movies he made especially he's not the same as Schwarzenegger, but he is similar before he sort of got like real acting chops. By the time he starts making movies where he's getting nominated for awards and stuff, like he is doing a very Schwarzenegger thing, and that like his acting is kind of one note, but he has this sort of intangible charisma, this sort of natural charisma that is just like he fills the screen. And Franco Nero is super fun, and I like him a lot in this movie, but he is not that. So
yeah,
no, no argument there. Just he was good though.
Yeah,
and I think this movie is also, it's a lot more like it's driven by its plot more so than the Man with No Name trilogy. I feel like, which is maybe more driven by its characters, even though I'm like those movies have kind of convoluted plots as well.
I mean, the first one, the third one has a super convoluted plot, right? Involving like
I guess
Confederate gold and like the third one's also super long. Like I have the like Blu-ray set of those movies. I like those movies a lot, but I feel like I'm a weirdo because I'm firmly in the camp that the second one is the best one.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people feel that way.
Okay,
though.
Well, maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe
Definitely
I don't have
more
my
so
finger
than
on the
the first
pulse of how people feel about 60s spaghetti westerns, but I feel like when I've said like I think For a Few Dollars More is the best one, everybody's like, but The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and I'm like, yeah, it's a little too long. Honestly, it's more than a little too long, but they like the dedication to it makes it work. But that is a long fucking movie.
Yeah, and it's an amazing movie. Like I would expect that movie to be on like AFI top 100 whatever
Right.
ahead of for a few dollars more. But I would expect anyone who's really into spaghetti westerns to have seen the second one the most times.
Yeah. I mean, the third one had the end scene in the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is like one of the all-time great showdown scenes, where they all are sizing each other up and then they draw. And the best part is almost after, like, the tension's been released and everything, and then I can never remember the guy as the scroungy little bastard, the ugly, quote unquote.
Tuco.
Like, yeah, Tuco. He doesn't have any. He has no bullets, and Easter tells him there's two kinds of people in this world: people with loaded guns and people who dig. You dig. But yeah, this movie, most spaghetti westerns aren't Leone spaghetti westerns, and specifically that they're not those three Leone spaghetti westerns, although a lot of people really, really like Once Upon a Time in the West. But this movie also is like, I mean, there's comedy in the Leone ones as well, for sure. But this movie is much more of like an overt, like, action comedy. It's sort of like a precursor to the 80s buddy cop.
Precursor to Shanghai Noon.
Yes.
Kind of, yeah. Although I was reading that like people say that this is not a spaghetti western, or it's like a subset of spaghetti western called Zapata westerns, which are like, there was a whole lot of spaghetti westerns that took place during the Mexican Revolution, but then there was like this kind of wave of movies that dealt with it more explicitly, which like there's key figures of the Mexican Revolution who are named in the script for this movie. And apparently the American like sophisticate teaming up with a Mexican bandit was like a motif for those movies. Which I haven't seen enough of them to say, but
yeah, that's interesting.
No idea. I think I've heard that phrase as applied to a subset of westerns before, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah. Alex just signed on, I think.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Hi, Alex.
Did you watch
Spaghetti.
the trailer like I said?
No. What'd you say?
How do you feel about spaghetti?
I love spaghetti. I'm Italian.
How do you feel
How
about
do you feel about westerns?
I like westerns. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're Italian.
Well, yeah. So,
You got to watch.
Two of your
to,
2 or 3 biggest exports.
what I want you to do is watch that
Maybe not
trailer.
so much
It's 2.5
these days.
minutes long, and see if you could figure out what the plot of the movie is.
Okay. This is a fun little experiment. Companeros, right?
Yep.
Free Western-
Companeros.
That's the whole movie. 1970 trailer, 2 minutes 27. All right. I'm going to mute you guys. I shall return.
yeah.
Yes.
Please do.
Well, I think while he's muted, or I don't know if he can hear us.
He probably
But,
he might have deafened us, which you can do. And you can do
Okay.
that.
What the movie is about
Not
is
good at listening in his bed.
Fair
there's a
enough.
Swedish arms dealer for some reason is he's got this big cache of weapons that he's bringing to one of a faction in the Mexican Revolution in exchange for great treasures, and so he comes to town, and he starts like rubbing some people there the wrong way, including this group of bandits, like kind of like hapless, idiotic bandits, it seems like. And he makes a deal with this obviously crooked, I don't know, general, commander, or whatever of
General,
this.
he's a general, yeah.
General. And his payment is stuck in a vault, and nobody in town has the password to the vault.
Yeah, the general didn't do a great job of. He says he killed all the people who worked in the bank before he got the vault open, which is just like not.
Yeah, maybe we should have thought that one through.
Yeah, he's like one of the people in the movie who's not redeemed whatsoever. But yeah, the password to the vault, the only person who knows it is this guy Santos, who is a professor who is leading his own faction of the revolution, which is like a pacifist faction, and he is imprisoned over the border in the U.S.
So here's where I'm at. I have a big blind spot when it comes to the Mexican Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
So I never a lot of Italian westerns for whatever reason take place during, and not even just those. Like I saw a few before the bad times, my local nonprofit theater did a summer of 69. So this is in 2019, summer of 2019. They did a summer of 69 series, and they did The Wild Bunch, which is a movie we should do someday because that movie kicks fucking ass. Ernest Borgnine in like similarly as menacing as like crazy train conductor with a hammer, Ernest Borgnine. Which is so weird because for years I never thought of Ernest Borgnine that way until I saw Emperor of the North and then The Wild Bunch, and then I was like, no, Ernest Borgnine was a fucking badass.
I have no idea what this movie's about.
But that movie also takes place during the Mexican Revolution, and I feel like I don't know enough about the Mexican Revolution to understand the backdrop of a lot of these stories, and it doesn't really matter because they're not like historical dramas about the Mexican Revolution, but
yeah, I think for this movie it doesn't matter. It's interesting you say that though, because earlier, like as I was watching the movie, I kept like trying to figure out like what agenda this movie has, if any. And I was hitting pause and trying to read about the Mexican Revolution, and what I kind of figured out is that I'm like basically just have the same brain poisoning as every American has, which is like I found myself kind of reading about what happened. It's like, all right, so who's the left and who's the right? Who's the good guys? Who's the bad guys? Who's the Republicans? Who's the Democrats? Obviously, like I knew it wasn't those words, but like that's not how it was.
Right.
Like there were multiple factions that, like, you know, in addition to like some kind of spot on the political scale that they occupied, they also had like, you know, a class context and a cultural context or like a regional context.
yeah.
So like it was not something that I was going to be it was ambitious to think that I could educate myself about it while watching Vamos a Matar Companeros.
Yeah,
yes.
right. 30 minutes you had before we podcasted.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they're sort of both revolutionary factions, like you said, and there's this professor who preaches nonviolence. That's the thing that muddies the water for me about this movie a lot, is that like the professor constantly preaches nonviolence, but all of his followers are not nonviolent.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they're not, but I think that also I kind of liked that because like the movie, if there is one agenda the movie has, and it's like a basically a buddy comedy, so to say it has an agenda is movie like
Old West machine guns are fucking cool.
Yeah, the movie is not the movie is not a proponent of strict pacifism. Like the movie, no, I feel like
sure
is clear. I mean, because it's an action movie and there's like a Gatling gun, but also because like it's clear in the movie that like that approach does not work and it's not going to work.
Right.
And I think that part of the context of this setting that was used for these Zapata Western movies is that the directors of these movies like lived under Mussolini.
Yeah,
like they saw fascism, they saw like extreme right-wing politics firsthand, and like their ideas of you know how the world works were shaped by that.
Right. Like peace, love, and understanding doesn't work. You have to drag Mussolini out of his house and hang him and kick him in the head, like desecrate his fucking corpse because fuck that guy, and that's how you get rid of fascism. Basically, was their takeaway. Yeah. I think. Yeah. I mean, like right out of that, not right out of, but like close enough behind that comes like Salo, right? Which is like an adaptation of 120 Days of Sodom by the Marquis de Sade, but instead moved to be like the Italian fascists who are buddied up with the Nazis are the ones committing all the like really gross shit in that movie, and it's like there's a commentary happening here.
Yeah.
About like the wealthiest Italians who were fucking cozy with Mussolini and were like the oligarchs of their time, right? And that's like, you know, and the wild thing about that, of course, is that like that director, like he made that movie and like those people were still alive and living in Italy when that movie came. Like the people he's basically pointing at by making an adaptation, a modernized adaptation of 120 Days of Sodom, are still alive and wealthy in Italy when he does that, which is fucking bananas. So yeah, I mean, yes, there is an anti-pacifism vibe in this movie for sure, but like you said, it's an action movie, so that is to be expected. Unless you're like unless you're insane like Steven Seagal and you make a movie about being like a Buddhist monk who slits people's throats with a razor blade hidden in a credit card, then the waters get very muddy about fucking messaging on that. I feel like we have to do that movie at some point because that movie is just utterly fucking insane.
Yeah, I would say on the
When
scale.
does that happen in?
The Glimmer Man is the name of that.
Okay.
Literally, Steven Seagal. It's Keenan Ivory Wayans is a cop, like a detective, and he gets partnered up with Seagal, who is a former cop but has now become like a Buddhist monk, which would make him theoretically I mean, I know there are like super violent like reactionary sects of Buddhists in certain places in like Southeastern Asia that do terrible things, but like for the most part Buddhists are generally pacifists and like don't, you know, like the super devout Buddhists like carry around like sort of like almost like brooms, and they like sweep the ground in front of them as they walk, right? Because they don't want to like even the life of an ant or a spider is like they don't want to take that life. And like this is like
his interpretation might be a little off.
Steven Seagal reading of like like he just extrajudiciously executing criminals on the street with a razor blade hidden in a credit card, like while he spouts just the weirdest. Yeah, well, right, he didn't hurt any ants at least. It's just that one, and
maybe that's a symbolic also.
that one and On Deadly Ground, where he basically like casts himself as a Native American even though he is not Native American apparently at all, and that's like his environmentalist movie, which is a weird thing. Knowing what we know now about Steven Seagal, the idea that he made like an environmentalist movie that's like anti-oil drilling, but now he's like a Russian national who's like buddies with how does he say it? Vladimir Putin. Like that's fucking insane. This man is insane. So I guess
not even the environmental movie of his that I've seen.
Which one of you? Which he had another one?
Yeah, let me find it. Where's his filmography? I can't.
I mean, I guess he's made
remember.
like 7,000 movies at this point.
Yeah, I was gonna say right.
Even though now he's like a wad of Play-Doh. Like he's.
Yeah, it does this movie a disservice to
be talking about Steven Seagal.
Well, I was gonna say that.
Correct.
Yeah, like I'm thinking of movies that like deal with a like very complex and nuanced political situation in a way where they just kind of like use it as the backdrop of the movie.
Yeah.
And
Rambo 4.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, is Rambo 4. And I would say that this movie is like
Rambo
there's sanity on one side and Rambo 4 on the other, and this movie is kind of in the middle of those. Like it doesn't seriously deal with the Mexican Revolution, but it presents like the setting that the movie takes place in has some nuance. It's not like the good guys versus the bad guys, and you know, there's a white guy fighting for the good guys and ripping people's throats out.
Right. So I also
Fire
like,
Down Below is the one I was thinking of. He plays an EPA agent.
Jesus
Oh my
Christ.
God.
Who's the bad? Michael Caine's the bad guy in On Deadly Ground, right? Or is that Fire Down Below? Now I feel like I'm confusing
that's
these two.
Michael. That's On Deadly Ground.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. No, you've got you had that one right.
Is that
Fire
the
Down
one?
Below
Is
is
that the
3
one
years later.
where he he beats up that the character actor's name I can't remember. He's dead now, I think, but he's like the thug in Dumb and Dumber. He's like a famous-ish character. He's one of those guys. Hey, it's that guy. Seagal beats him up in a bar and asks what it takes to change the essence of a man. That's on Deadly Ground, right? I'm still working at the same movie.
I think so. I don't remember. Okay. It's been a long time. Yeah.
He beats the racism out of him, and then asks what it takes to change the essence of a man. Oh my god. Let's not talk about Steven Seagal tonight. That's my fault. I apologize.
Briefly, one last thing about that movie is that movie cracks me up because it ends with a slideshow about how like the oil industry is bad, and it's like
Steven Seagal, Vladimir Putin's best friend.
Steven Seagal gives a PowerPoint presentation about how like, don't you see, like, oil, it's like bad, man, and it's like, okay, what? Anyway, that's
fucking wild.
Not wrong.
Bart the Bear is listed as the Bear On Deadly Ground, just so you know. In case you're wondering who plays the bear. It's the Bear.
Yeah. That's good to know.
Bart.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So
so the Mexican Revolution.
Yeah, so
I think
yes, Ethan, we were talking about so I think that Rambo 4 is the thing about Rambo 4 is that when that movie came out, that's the situation in Myanmar was like current events. And so this movie kind of slides a little bit just based on the fact that even when this movie came out, the Mexican Revolution was like 100 years in the past or whatever,
50, 60, yeah.
Yeah. So like,
this is more like Dynasty Warriors.
I mean, the parts where Franco Nero picks up a Gatling gun, it feels a lot like Dynasty Warriors.
It's a lot like that, yeah. Right.
That feels a lot like Rambo 4 as well.
Yeah.
Both movies, people handhold guns that are supposed to be on a tripod.
All right. Less gory, though, fewer squibs in this movie than in Rambo 4.
I did notice that this movie had red blood and not the orange blood that these movies usually have, which was a surprise.
That's true. There's not as much of it in there, though, as I would expect for like an Italian exploitation film from 1970,
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, again, Wild Bunch was 1969, and like Sam Peckinpah is not like the standard to compare to, but that movie has a shitload of blood. And, although I guess
same with, there was like one part of the movie where I was like, trying to remember if there could be nudity in these kind of movies this time, and then I was like, and is there blood? We're like a third of the way through. I don't know if I've seen any, and I was like,
this movie
that
could have
can't
gotten
be right though.
This movie could have gotten a PG in like the pre-PG-13 era.
Yeah.
So this is going back to Tomas Milian for a moment, or Tomas Milian. He also did some movies with Lucio Fulci. Including some of his westerns, at least one of his westerns, and those probably have like a little more gore than the Corbucci ones, because Fulci spared no expense when it came to splattering blood everywhere. I'm still impressed. Anthony and I once saw in the theater Fulci's City of the Living Dead, which has a dude getting drilled through the head, and that effect is still like it's an in-camera effect, and it's still super impressive to watch that guy get like the drill pressed through the noggin. So those like 4 for the Apocalypse probably is a much. I haven't seen that movie. I probably should, but that probably has a lot more gore in it than this Tomas Milian spaghetti western.
We should say that Franco Nero, he plays the Swedish arms dealer,
cleverly named the Swede.
Yes,
he's pretty sweet.
Yeah, they name him on the. I think you don't find out his name until close to the end of the movie when you see his name on a wanted poster.
You see his passport at one, which is a weird plot point that I actually took a note about, and I mean, I guess we'll get there, but there's a moment where
one hand hears his name in the paper.
Yeah, but he like leaves his passport in a dead guy's hand, like in True Romance, and you kind of think like that's going to come back to bite him, but it doesn't really.
I think
come
that
up
was
again.
that was like a badass anime. Like he killed that guy, and you see the hand on the ground, like with smoke coming from it, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tomas Milian, who I believe should have been a Hollywood leading man, he plays the most prominent of like the scoundrel bandits, who the scummy money grubbing general has the idea that Franco Nero and Tomas Milian, the Swede, and El Vasco, that those two are the ones who should go to America and capture this the professor who knows the combination of the safe.
Yeah, which again we'll get there, but when the combination to the safe is revealed, I'm like, nobody tried that, huh? Nobody just like on a lark thought that might work. I mean, it's pretty close to like 6969420. Like it's like as soon as they reveal what the combination is, I was like, nobody just like thought they would fucking try that, just like give it a go to see if it worked, because that seems really obvious. But before they go, like Franco Nero's character, the Swede, just like throws his fucking weight around in this town when he shows up before General Mongo gets there. Like he goes into a hotel. Well, so first he gives $1. This is a semi-important plot point. He gives $1 to Tomas Milian when he gets into town. And
after Tomas Milian throws a banana peel at him.
Yeah, throws a banana at him, and he sticks it with his umbrella. Yeah, and he okay. So I'm sorry. Before we get too deep into this, though, does anybody know? Like I haven't seen enough Franco Nero movies. I think, is that his voice, or did somebody dub Franco Nero in this movie?
I'm not sure, because I mean, the other Franco Nero movie I've seen, I mean, you've probably seen more of like the American movies that he's popped up in over the years than I have. But like I've seen Street Law, which is another one of his 70s Italian movies, but that doesn't tell me anything, because it could have just been the same English speaking actor dubbing him over.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem out of place.
Right. It doesn't seem out. It's hard to say. It's especially since with these kind of movies, they overdub everybody. Like all of the dialogue is ADR regardless. Like, you know that Jack Palance's voice is that, because you know, like everybody knows what Jack Palance sounds like. So you can tell that's his voice.
Yeah. That would make me believe that it probably is their real voices.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten to Jack Palance yet, because I guess he hasn't showed up in the story yet.
Yeah, he shows up later. But so he just kind of like bullies his way through this town. He checks into a hotel, or goes to check into a hotel, and the guy's like, "Oh, well, there's only one room in this hotel, and he's got it." And Franco Nero, the Swede, is like, "Who is he?" And he's like, "He's the most powerful hombre of all," which is weird because they all know that there's a general that is more, whatever. Anyways, he's the most powerful hombre of all. And let me tell you, friends, the most powerful hombre of all has made some choices about his hairstyle. That
everybody knows Goku's the most powerful hombre of all.
This guy's hair kind of almost looks like he's going for a Goku. He's shaved his whole head except in the very front. There's like a tuft of hair in the very front of his head. And basically Franco Nero just like knocks him out in one punch after insulting his. He says like his mother is a whore and
his father, I think. Father?
Yeah, I can't remember what he says about
He doesn't
his father.
get to his sister.
He says that, yeah, not to mention your sister. And then he punches him or whatever, and the guy like runs out of the bar, and then he's like, so now it's my room. So he has a room. And yeah, the whole thing is he rolls into town with a train car full of like bombs and guns and armaments, and he's going to sell them to the highest bidder, which is why I got like fistful of dollars vibes, because it's like pretty clear he's going to play one side against the other. Which of course they don't really mention that. Like, that's the thing that's weird, right? Is like he meets the woman, what's her name? Vera? Is that her name? Early on, and she's basically trying to make a play for the guns instead of, but like they never mention that the professor who's their like spiritual advisor is like a pacifist. So why are they trying to get the guns?
Well, you're talking about the woman who Tomas Milian cuts her hair off.
Right.
That's Lola is her name.
Lola, that's her name.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the prostitute that he knows back in the U.S. that will come into play later. Yeah. So yeah, Lola, that's her name, not Vera. Lola. So Lola, yeah, she is trying to kind of like talk him into selling them the arms, with it never really revealed at that point that the guy who's leading their faction is a pacifist. But a bunch of them go into his hotel room, and then they all have to like try to sneak out, but the general's men see them, and she like gets into bed with him to try to like play off that they're not doing anything, and Vasco goes into the room, and that's when he cuts her hair off, and then keeps it like a fucking weirdo for the rest of the movie.
Which we don't find out until he says, in the moments leading up to him marrying her in the end, spoiler, I kept it close to my brains.
Yeah, right.
Just one of the best lines in the movie.
I mean, what's weird...
And I think a line that was supposed to be funny. Like, not a problematic translation or anything.
Yeah. And he's well, I mean, we'll get to it, but he's the character that has like the most character growth. Like, he has an arc. Mm-hmm. He ends up being like the moral center of the movie, which you don't really, or I didn't really expect.
Probably not at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think where the movie is kind of pointing you is basically that he is the going to become a revolutionary. Like, right. I mean, he sort of is in the beginning, but he's like a...
But he's just doof. Like, he's like an opportunist, right? Like, he's like, this lets me like fuck with people in the town and not have to like work a real job and be able to like bully people. Like, it's not about ideals for him in the beginning, you know, at all. It's just like,
but he thinks that it is, because when he's accused later of being basically having been hoodwinked by this general who's not all about the principles, he gets offended at that. Like, so he's kind of like lost. I feel like he thinks that he's a political revolutionary, but is really just a child.
Does he? Because when he goes to like back up the professor towards the end, he's like, "Oh, you're gonna stick with your principles till you die," and he's like, "Well, lucky for you, I don't have any principles."
Oh, yeah, I guess he does say that. I feel like maybe he was just channeling Tuco in that. There is a scene like maybe 15 minutes before then where the professor accuses him of basically being used as a pawn by the general's name is Mongo, by the way.
Yeah.
Shame that Eric isn't here. Basically that Mongo is manipulating him into enriching, helping him enrich himself. Mm. And he seems, at least at the idea that he's been tricked, he's very mad at that.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is we did I rewound this a little bit, but basically they figure out they can't open this vault, and so initially Mongo says he'll split it 60-40 or 66-33 or whatever with the Swede. But then when the Swede realizes that they don't have the combination and he has to go get it, then he turns it into like a 25-75 split with Mongo, and he heads off with Vasco to go over the Rio Grande into Texas and find the professor who is being held captive by... Actually, at the very beginning, he's just kind of like hiding out, right? And then like these like American oil barons are basically like, we'll finance your revolution, but you have like, when you win and you're like the new president of Mexico, you give us like basically like what the British government did to like Middle Eastern countries, like, and say like, you have to give us these like indefinite oil leases on all the wells. And he basically tells them to go jump. And so they have him arrested. And so he's basically a POW. He's being held by an army. He's being held in an army fort just over the border. So
I thought that one of the most interesting things politically about this movie, maybe the only point that it seems like it might be making seriously, and probably comes from like the filmmakers at the time having seen like lived through wartime, is that this movie has like multiple factions that are just war profiteers. Like there's the Americans who are after the oil. There's Mongo, who's after, his like small time riches, but pretending to be a revolutionary general. And there's the main character's a war profiteer, like a guy who is selling arms to the highest bidder.
Right. Our hero is a war profiteer.
Yeah. There's like almost nobody in like this revolutionary context who's like actually has pure intentions, except I guess this professor.
Right. Who spoilers fucking dies at the end of the movie. So so they breeze into whatever border, Texas to El Paso or wherever it's supposed to be. And
they get there very quickly. The movie doesn't really follow their journey so much.
Yeah, it's the thing that I found a little weird, and this movie clocks in at 2 hours, which is still like an hour shorter than The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but it's also like it kind of felt like it overstayed its welcome a little bit. And I feel like in the middle is where like so their journey to the US is basically not shown at all, but then the movie spends a lot of time with their trip back. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that stuff probably could have been trimmed a little bit. But so they get to the US as you say, very quickly, and they play a game of roulette, which this would be Alex's favorite scene if he watched the movie. I'm sure it was Anthony's. That Vasco tries to bet on 69 on the roulette table, and the dealer, for lack of a better term, like tries to explain to him that the numbers don't go that high on a roulette wheel. But he is insistent that he wants to bet on 69. And then Franco Nero says, well, no, I'll bet, and I'll bet on the number that wins. And so they bet on 2. And when it comes up not 2, they just pull a gun on the guy spinning the wheel and move it to 2. But then
and strike a match inside his nose.
Yes. And strike a match inside his nose.
Yeah. The best part of the trailer, definitely.
And that's when Franco Nero's acquaintance, who is a madam, like she's not just a prostitute, she runs the establishment. It seems pretty clear. He mentions very casually that she's blonde everywhere, the only woman he knows that's blonde everywhere. And Vasco reiterates. So Vasco spends the night with her while the Swede goes
you missed maybe the best line in the movie, I think, which is that he insinuates that Vasco should sleep with her. Mm-hmm. And Vasco's like, but she's your girl, right? And he says something like, there's certain things we Swedes don't care about.
That's right. Yeah. And then he spends the night with her or whatever, and he's like, the first thing he says when the Swede comes back is she is blonde all over, or she's blonde everywhere or whatever.
It's a good Buster Keaton moment of the movie, I think, where Franco Nero spots him through the opening in the door, and you see him in a daze with lipstick all over his face.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. He's got the kiss marks like a cartoon character, like Buster Keaton all over his face and stuff. And so basically what they arrange is that she's going to bring some girls to the fort for the soldiers. And that's part of her gig as the local madam. She brings working girls to the fort after sunset, and they have to be gone by sunrise because they want to keep up the respectability of the U.S. Army. And they're going to kind of help sneak in the Swede and Vasco so they can break out the professor. And is the scene where they first meet Jack. One of the things they do on the way to that is they do meet Jack Palance. Yeah, they do meet.
Yeah, I guess they do.
So we did skip over that. So that's an important scene. So they're traveling and they get off a train, and I'm trying to remember why they even stopped there in the first place. Why they don't just keep going.
The journey to and from Mexico, plot wise, is a little hazy.
Yeah,
it's a little thin.
Yeah, so they stop for whatever reason, and it's a town where Jack Palance lives, And Jack Palance used to have like a working relationship with the Swede until one time they were in a tight spot together, and basically the Swede like ditched out on Jack Palance's character. And the only way he survived, apparently they nailed whoever it was that they got on the bad side of, nailed him to a tree or whatever, and his pet hawk pecked his hand off so he could escape. So now he has like a wooden hand, and he leaves the Swede in a noose, like balanced on a barrel that's turned on its side, so it's like rolling right under his feet. And so he has to beg Vasco to cut him down, basically, or get him out of the noose. And what does he promise him to do it? I don't remember. That he'll
maybe he cut him in on the gold,
more of the
like
loot.
that.
Yeah, I think it was more a bigger portion of the loot. And so he gets them out of there, and then once they leave, then now Jack Palance's character is after them. And Jack Palance in this movie, two things about Jack Palance in this movie. I think Ethan, I should give way to you to talk about the first thing since you brought it up in the email thread.
You said that guy who's you said like the most powerful muchacho in town.
Yeah, the most powerful hombre.
That he's made the most powerful hair choice. Incorrect. I would argue that Jack Palance, even though like the guy in the hotel has a hairstyle that like maybe like a pro wrestler in Puerto Rico would have that hairstyle. No one else, no human really would.
No normal person would ever have
the Jack Palance hairstyle is something that I could see a person having, but it would be like a disturbed person. It's like so greasy.
It's extremely greasy. Yeah.
That came across in the trailer, yeah.
It's like if AJ Styles' hair was just like he just let it
nasty.
Yeah, just didn't wash it for like 2 weeks. It's just it's a choice. It's a choice, friends. The other choice that is made by Jack Palance, which like, okay, so for American audiences of our collective generation, the four of us here, I think Jack Palance from two things. He is
City
the gang.
Slickers.
Right. He's the gangster in Batman '89. He's Grissom, who the Joker is the Joker is initially his lackey, then he kills him and takes over his organized crime syndicate. And then
he's incredible in that movie.
Yeah, he's great in that. He is absolutely wonderful in that. I mean, everybody is. That movie is so much fun.
Yeah.
And then as Alex said, he's in the two City Slickers movies. And that's if you know Jack Palance and you're our elder millennial or whatever fucking age, like that's what Jack Palance from. But he had a long and storied career in he's actually a lot like Leonardo DiCaprio's character in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like he was kind of a star, a more mainstream star in like the 50s. He was in the original Requiem for a Heavyweight, and then there was a remake where Anthony Quinn played the same role, but the original was Jack Palance. He was in a bunch of stuff, and then eventually he did a lot of exploitation films, and a lot of them he did a lot of Italian. Like in he lived to be really old, so like you say his later years, and you're talking about like the 60s and 70s. He's doing these Italian sort of exploitation movies, but those were kind of his later years because I'm pretty sure that dude was a fucking 100 when he finally died.
Looks like he made it to 87.
Yeah. So
he's in that's right. 90. He's in Tango and Cash.
That's right. Yes. He's the bad guy in Tango and Cash. What's
weird about his filmography is it almost looks like he kind of like went into exile after like the studio system collapsed.
Yeah.
Which I wonder what happened.
I feel like a lot of people did, but yeah, he was nominated for multiple Oscars in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Shane. Like, so, and then, like you said, he just kind of drops off the face of not the face of the earth, but he drops off the face of American. He drops off the face of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Around like 1960, and then
he was in multiple Corbucci movies. He was in an Umberto Lenzi movie. Enzo Castellari. Yeah.
He was one of many Draculas. So many Draculas.
He was in a Michael Winner movie in 1972.
With Charles Bronson.
Oh, yeah.
So, there. Chato's Land, where Bronson plays a Native American. My God.
Right.
I mean, look, man, I've stumped hard for the 70s as the best, one of if not the best decades for film in the history of film. But there was a lot of fucked up shit that people got away with in the 70s that they thankfully like wouldn't get away with anymore, like casting Charles Bronson as a Native American. Maybe don't. I don't.
Look.
What were you gonna say is the second choice that he made?
The fucking dialect he is using.
Yes, yeah, that's right. He's like maybe Scottish, a little bit.
I think Scottish. You were right when you said that it's the same accent that John Lithgow uses in Cliffhanger, which, if memory serves, I believe Anthony referred to as English Southern gentleman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would
feels right.
It's not quite that. It's like
Irish Southern gentleman is what I was kind of picking up on.
It's a mix of Irish and what's the name of the accent that was like the one that actors used in American movies in the 30s and 40s?
Mid-Atlantic accent.
No, not transatlantic.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
whatever.
The Mid-Atlantic is a real. You guys, the multiple.
Well, yes, we lived there. Yeah, yes. But
the transatlantic accent. It's like in the middle of that and an Irish accent, but it's like an Irish accent done like if one of us was doing it, like not a good one.
It's weird. It's a weird choice.
And they only really referred to him as an American.
They call him an American or a gringo. They call him. Well, they also called the Swede gringo, and that made me confused because I thought that when Mexicans said gringo, they were talking about Americans, but maybe it's just any white person. I guess maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure, there's no reason for him to be doing this accent. It's not motivated by anything in the story.
Yeah, it's.
What are you talking about?
It's cool.
No, it is cool. It's definitely.
I'm just not sure what he was going for. That's the thing that I was just like, what are we doing? What are you trying to do?
What are you doing here, bud? What's going on?
Whatever he's doing he's
committed to it. Yeah, he's committed to it for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
A for effort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's also got great fashions and a bird as well. Like the bird is with him through most of the movie.
The bird is sick as hell. I like the bird.
Sick as hell. It's true.
Yeah, the bird is I think they say it's an eagle. I initially thought it was a falcon, and I think that's just because like that's the when people talk about falconing, like you train the falcon to do stuff. So I assumed it was a falcon, but then they say it's an eagle. So like I'm not a fucking birder, so I don't know.
It looks to me like a falcon. However, I think I kind of like that the American has the eagle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know if that was supposed to be like commentary or just, I don't know what it would be commentary for.
Well,
but
they kill and they kill and eat it, right?
That's after they're on their way back.
Vasco, kill it and eat it. So to take that, if that's a symbol for the American having an eagle, then take the Swede and the Mexican revolutionary killing and eating it how you will. So
he doesn't. We know that he's on their tail then, but they escape, and then we don't see him until after they're already on their way back, right?
Right. So when they're because they find out one of his like goons comes and says like the Swede escaped.
Yeah.
So there's like they take a cart away from the fort and one of the wheels comes off and they end up in the drink, and then they're trying to like get through a checkpoint, so they do a thing where they disguise themselves as monks and put the professor in a casket and try to carry him through. But now I can't remember what happens. Like, I just watched this movie like 2 hours ago and I can't remember what happens where that scheme goes awry and they get caught. And that's the first chain gun. That's the first Franco Nero with a chain gun scene.
Yes, he has two chain gun scenes, and they're unrelated chain guns, which I think is very good. He finds one and then finds another one somewhere else, thousands of miles away, I believe.
Yes. They're not identical though either. Like they're different Old West chain guns. So.
Yeah, I think there's a mishap where Santos they drop the coffin, and it looks like he's about to be caught, so they stage a violent escape.
Yeah.
They also, it's not really explained how they have the robes and the
casket.
Yeah,
right, yeah.
But they have those.
They have those now.
Yep, they've got them. So, I mean, may as well use them if you've got them.
Right. You didn't lug them around that desert for nothing.
That's right. And so then they end up hooking up back up with, once they make it successfully back to Mexico. And I think they don't realize that Jack Palance is still kind of on their tail, right? But they think they got rid of him.
This is around the time where the professor starts picking up the turtles.
Yes.
The
best scene of the movie.
And so they get how do they get split up from the professor, right? Because then the professor gets...
He tricks the professor is he's giving them the silent treatment for a while,
right?
Because
they murder people like without.
And then he starts speaking with them, but it seems like maybe he's got something up his sleeve, and he basically turns one of them against the other. I think he like messes with Tomas Milian's head and makes him angry at Franco Nero for some reason. So they have a fight, and they end up in a fist fight in the river, in which I think Tomas Milian does a missile drop kick to Franco Nero, which is pretty good.
Yep.
They're fighting, and then they sort of like come to their senses, and they see that Santos is gone. So he's basically like distracted them and then made a break for it, and Jack Palance captures him, I believe is how it works.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
And so the revolutionary, so then Vasco and the Swede end up getting back with the professor's faction, and they don't believe that he got split up from them or whatever, so they're gonna execute him. And Lola is like, no, his ideals are like no bloodshed. We can't just like put these guys to death with a firing squad. And that's when he notices the little turtle. The Swede notices the little turtles and is like, oh, no, we'll follow the trail of little turtles to find the professor.
Are we before or
like
after
the best breadcrumb trail?
Where Jack Palance...
what are you talking about, man?
What, turtles?
Who leaves fucking a trail of little
The
turtles?
professor does.
The professor.
Oh.
Come on, man, keep up.
All right, sorry.
And
I feel like we either are coming up on or we have skipped the scene where Jack Palance tortures Tomas Milian by strapping like a starved like guinea pig to his stomach.
We skipped that part.
Yeah, I think that's before.
There's a lot in this movie, all right?
Yeah, that's before the fight in the river. I think that's
Yeah,
like
I think that's right. I think that's right before the fight. They save
another
him.
one of Jack Palance's attempts at pursuit of these guys, and they end up getting away that time as well. Yeah, this middle, the I don't know if you'd call this the second act.
Sure.
Feels like it's. I think that it's. I enjoy watching this movie. It really could be 15 minutes shorter, and the fat is all here.
Yeah. Yes. It really, the trip back, I feel, is where all the fat is from the time that they leave the fort until the time that they basically are at are like reacquire the professor and hook back up with his faction all together. That's the whole part of the stretch of the movie where you could cut a bunch of stuff out of there and kind of make the movie move a little bit faster.
Yeah. And like the 3 beats of that are, I guess, Palance catches them the first time, tortures Tomas Milian by strapping a rodent to his stomach, who he says that the rodent's going to basically, eat a hole through him. And Franco Nero and the Swede and the professor are getting away, and Franco Nero does not want to go back and save Vasco because he thinks that, probably rightly so, that then they will be killed. But they end up going back anyway, and
but he forgets this is a movie, and when he has a machine gun, he's invincible.
Yes,
for some reason.
Yeah. Also, it's good that we remembered that we passed over this scene, because the scene has a really inexplicable moment of editing where Franco Nero, the Swede, devises a plan to catch the falcon or whatever bird this is. He's got like a little mirror or a little shiny piece of metal, and he, like, using like a glint of light off the sun, entices the bird to land, and the bird for some reason lands like in some kind of leather bag, and then they throw Vasco's jacket over it. Like, complete nonsense, and like they edited it the best they could, but it made no sense at all.
Yeah, doesn't work.
Yeah. And then they do a switcheroo of the bodies, where I think they take one of Jack Palance's goons and put the rodent on his stomach, and they escape. So when Jack Palance sees them from afar, or looks back at the scene from afar, it looks like Tomas Milian is still there.
Right. Yeah, and so that's roundabouts the time, right, where Jack Palance shows up to talk to Mongo. Mongo is also using a mirror to shoot like townspeople climbing a pole to get to a rifle. It's like the dipshit Olympics. Like, that's right around there, right? So it turns out that Palance is on to the fact that the Swede and Vasco have like buddied up with the professor and his faction. And the professor.
Wait, let me interject just for a second. I realize that we're just saying Jack Palance.
I can't remember.
Realize I didn't know what his name was in the movie, and I'm looking at Wikipedia, and his name is
John.
John.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's something. It's not far off of his name.
Yeah. So he's Jack Palance.
Yeah, he's Jack Palance
playing himself.
Yes. Yeah.
With a Southern Irish gentleman accent.
He really has been alive for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he basically rats them out that they're with the professor, and the professor has this sort of like sanctimonious speech about, like, which again, like the only thing this film is really committed to is that like nonviolence doesn't work, basically. He says like some of the young like upstarts that are in his faction are like, look man, like we got guns, we got bullets, and like the only way, like either they're all just gonna kill us or like we have to fight for our ideals. And the professor's like, maybe you're right, but I don't have the stomach for any of this, and like blah blah blah, and this is kind of sanctimonious about it. And
but also defeated.
Yeah, also slightly defeated. Oh, but like not not completely, right? Because like later, like
he's true to himself to the end.
He's true to himself till the bitter end. Yeah. So, but yeah. So the Jack Palance is like, well, I'm gonna go. Like, we're gonna go get him. You know, basically. So it's after the general has them, right? They basically, the general sends two guys at Jack Palance's recommendation, which, like, this is so dumb. Like, if there was ever the moment in this film when you realize that the general quote unquote is just like a giant dipshit, is when Jack Palance is like, oh, if you want to get rid of him, just like tell him that he has to come meet with you or you'll hang all of these prisoners of his that you have. And he's like, oh, that's a good idea. Like, it's not a fucking stroke of genius, dude. Like, like, you're trying to figure out how to lure the professor out. All you have to do is say you're going to kill all his people that you have, you know, as hostages or whatever, and he'll come, instead of just like making them climb this fucking pole and shooting them in a mirror. Like, so he sends like two people to go, and then of course Vasco pulls his guns on the two guys from the general's faction, and the professor is like, you don't like pull guns on them, they're waving the white flag. And he's like, yeah, I don't trust these guys. And I mean, he's right to not trust them. And the professor says he'll go and meet with them, and then that's the scene where they like tear out part of a wall to save the professor, right? And that's like kind of the big finale action beat, is where that comes in. Am I right about that?
Not exactly the finale. Or is that does that lead straight into the massacre, or
yeah,
or not quite yet?
I thought so.
Yeah, maybe it does. It is a really great, like, completely dumbass set piece. It makes as little sense as they have the robes in a coffin.
Right. Right.
But it's like ready, aim, fuck, and then the wall behind the professor completely caves in.
And they just grab him and like start shooting around him, basically, and all.
Yeah, I don't know how they're supposed to just be able to tear a hole in a brick wall.
They're the good guys. That's how.
Oh.
I mean, that's the thing, right? That's like when we talk about the difference between, I mean, and again, this is much more broadly a comedy. Like you said, this is part of that. What do they call it? Not a Sandinista Western, but a Zapata Western.
Yeah.
Like they're explicitly comedic, like overt comedic elements to them. So, I mean, that's probably part of it, right? But for me, that's kind of what separates it from like the Man with No Name trilogy. Like there are some silly things in those movies, but nothing like the good guys just pull a brick wall apart somehow so they can save someone, and you know, two of them are able to face down like an entire garrison of the general's like troops by themselves, basically.
Yeah, he pulls a hole in a brick wall and then immediately finds chain gun number 2.
Yes.
This is the chain gun that appears in the movie trailer, Alex.
Okay, good. That's the chain gun.
Yes, that's the chain gun number 2 is the chain gun.
There's one of the ones with like 6 barrels earlier. That's the one earlier in the movie.
There is a good, like a really great, I feel like highly stylized series of shots where he's mowing a bunch of guys down, and you see like 6 or 7 just agonized dying faces in a row of, you know, I guess it's the general's goons that he's mowing down.
Right. Very good spaghetti western faces.
Yes.
The kind of faces you expect from this type of movie, for sure. Dying, like, pain faces, for sure. So, yeah, and so, like, there's a big gunfight. It's not like the finale of, again, I'm just gonna keep mentioning the Wild Bunch. It's not on that level, but there's like, it's, you know, there's a lot of running and shooting, and you know, there's a chain gun, and they corner the general. And basically he just turns into like a sniveling, spineless whelp as soon as he's got a gun in his face, and begs for his life. And just to keep putting like a finer point on the non-violence thing doesn't work theme that they're going for, the general like begs for his life, and the professor's like, don't kill him, let him go. we don't want his blood on our hands type of, deal. And as he's walking away, he pulls a gun from his jacket and is going to try to shoot the professor, but the Swede guns him down first.
Oh, the Swede... Does the Swede shoot him first?
Does the Swede... Well, maybe it's Vasco. Is it Vasco?
He pulls a gun, and, I mean...
Oh, no, it's the kid.
Immediately...
Is it the kid?
He's absolutely wrecked by the entire Santista. Like,
right.
they're all just, like, flanking him.
Right.
And they see him pull this gun and, like, blow him away, like, shoot him 50 times.
Yeah, but
I think it might be Vasco who shoots him the first time. Yeah, that might be right.
Yeah. And so
he's truly punished by the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think that's kind of it, right? But then there's this weird ass scene of Vasco marrying Lola.
They open the safe after that, I believe.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. They open the safe. What's in the safe, Ethan?
What's in the safe?
Well, actually, sorry. Before we talk about what's in it, the combination.
Yes.
Okay, all right. We'll make Alex guess, but the combination of the safe is "Viva la Mexico," which I'm like, it's got a letter combination, and I'm like, nobody tried that one. Like,
no, man, too long.
Spitballing. Didn't think you would just give it a shot. Apparently not.
I think Alex has a shot at guessing what's in it.
Yeah, what do you think is in the safe, Alex?
Weed.
No, the answer is communism is in the safe.
I mean, basically. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like symbols of.
The answer is corn.
It's his poetic statement about what the true riches of the community are. It's like symbols of the land and the worker and the the community.
Native Americans used to call it maize.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, and of course, like, so the Swede is like, "What the hell, man?" Like, but the professor tells him, "Well, man, if you want to come live with us, like, all of these things can be yours, And of course, the Swede is not in it for that, so he's like, "All right, well, I'm just gonna mosey on down the road then. Adios." Basically.
Well, what he crashes the building where this is where the wedding scene happens.
Right.
The very strange wedding where Vasco reveals that he's kept Lola's hair close to his brains.
Good God. And she doesn't react like that's creepy as hell, my dude, at all. She thinks it's like kind of romantic, and he he becomes the sort of moral center of the movie towards the end, where like now he's like, no, like I was in this before for the wrong reasons, but like now, I'm doing it for the right reasons, and like I want, I want to fight for liberty and equality and whatever, all these high-minded ideals of freedom and equality. And they're like near the church, and they start like making out a little bit, and she's like, no, we can't because we're not married. And then he's like, let's just get married right now. And so they like kneel in the church, and like there's not like a officiant or anything. They just like Lola just says some stuff like they're about to get married, and right before they're sort of, I guess, where they would say like the I do is the Swede takes the statue or the totem of Saint Bernard, I guess, right? San Bernardino. He takes the statue, like he like lifts it out of the skylight on a rope, and is like, "All right, bye."
As if they're seeing a holy vision, and then they look up and it's Franco Nero,
right.
Which is really good.
Which in its own way is a holy vision, really.
Yes.
And yeah, so he takes the statue, and then that brings us all. We didn't even say this, but the beginning, the movie starts at the end, and then the whole movie is a flashback. So it goes back to the very beginning, where
very strange choice, totally unnecessary.
Right, means nothing. Doesn't make you wonder. I mean, it makes you wonder what the hell is going on, but like it really is not. like anything.
I think what they did is they needed to start a spaghetti western with two guys having like a showdown pointing guns at each other. I think that's the only reason why they did it.
Yeah, well, right, sure. So, yeah, they're doing like the classic western, draw type of deal, and Vasco's like, you can't take that statue, and the Swede is like, it's the only thing worth anything in the town, so, and I don't want to leave empty-handed. And so, but as they're about to draw, then he asks like Swedish rules, and he says no, Mexican rules.
Swedish style or Mexican style, which
much to
what is Swedish style? I wanted to see that.
Much to Alex's chagrin, they don't do Bangkok rules, so I guess since they empty their pistols except for one shell, I guess I assume that Swedish rules would be they get a full magazine or a full cylinder.
Maybe.
I guess I don't know. So right as they're about to draw, they both notice Jack Palance's like last two goons like sneaking up on them on either side. So rather than shoot each other, and it's not clear if like they planned this, if this was like, this is how we're going to draw out John and his like two goons is by like faking this, or if it's just like a happy accident. That,
no, like, I think that they are ready to kill each other, and then they, much like the scene where they're having the wrestling match in the river, they sort of come to their senses and realize that they're on the same side.
Yeah, so they draw, and then they each kill one of Jack Palance's goons, but then Jack Palance is there, and now since they only had one shell each, oh shit. And that's when the professor shows up with a rifle and is like, no, I'm gonna, I've never killed anyone before, but I'm willing to do it now because you're such a motherfucker or whatever. And of course, because he's an idealist, the gun is not loaded, and Jack Palance fucking kills him. So,
which Jack Palance doesn't know that though. That they discover that after he's dead.
Right. Yes. Right. And then Jack Palance gets you always want the villain to get like a big send off in these kind of movies. And boy howdy, does Jack Palance get fucking 86'd in this movie with a plum.
A completely insane series of shots that like makes a little more sense than the capturing the bird, but like the whole sequence is like 2.5 seconds long, maybe. I think Franco Nero just says hit the ground, and he throws the idol at a bomb that he had already rigged up in the beginning of the movie. Is that right? Don't we see him rigging that up?
Yeah, it's like a security measure, basically, I think, right? Is the implication that he's setting it up so that if people try to steal his guns without paying him for them, it'll blow up. And it blows the fuck up.
Yes. And we can tell that Jack Palance has been vaporized because his metal hand lands on the ground.
Yeah, right. His hand lands, somewhat unceremoniously in the dirt.
I don't know did we do Death Wish 3 for the original action cast?
Yeah, absolutely we did.
It was. I thought that the vaporization of Jack Palance was reminiscent of that movie where he
bazookas
shoots,
the guy out the window,
Riker with a bazooka. Yes.
I'm thinking of, I don't know if it's like a book or if it's like a movie itself or what, but the vaporization of Jack Palance is something. That's like a title for something.
That's another one of the titles of Companeros, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, so it's this movie. Okay. Well.
Yeah. The vaporization of John.
Yes, the vaporization.
That sounds like a religious text.
Yeah. No, it's blasphemy, dude. They killed him.
Blasphemy.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yep. We did it.
Yeah.
So that's basically
the movie. The Swede heads on, Vasco then takes up the mantle of the professor essentially, except he's willing to shoot a motherfucker to get things done, which the movie is very happy with, right? As we've said over and over again, like
although I feel like it's maybe strongly hinted that they're all going to be wiped out by this huge army.
Yeah, I mean, again, I do not. My understanding of the history of the Mexican Revolution is not great. It was eventually successful, though, right? So, like, the revolutionaries won, right?
I don't think it's exactly that. I think it's basically there was a power vacuum that formed, and there were like revolutionaries and counter-revolutionaries, and there was like, broadly speaking, like leftists on one side and like a a right wing like counter revolution of like educated sophisticates on the other. But there was like northern leftists and southern leftists. It's not something that we can easily map onto American politics. Therefore, we are too stupid to understand it. At least I am.
Right. But the people who were in power when the revolution started were no longer in power at the end of it, right? Like I'm not that far off the
that part's correct.
Okay.
That is correct. Yeah.
I fully admit my ignorance as a failing of the American public school system, wherein I learned nothing about the Mexican Revolution in school.
It happened?
I learned that was a thing that happened one time.
Okay. Well, good.
So,
yeah, we also what's great is we also learned basically nothing about the Cold War, Korean War, Vietnam War. So it's really good.
I learned things about those a little bit.
Okay, I basically did not.
Yeah, definitely. I actually spent a surprising even at the time I felt like in high school was like a surprising amount of time on the Vietnam War. And what a fucking boondoggle it was. But obviously, I feel like the most war history that I got in public schools was World War II and the American Revolution, and like a little bit of the Civil War and a little bit of the Vietnam War because it was like recent,
Yeah.
I remember trying to like Google what conflict the dude in the main character in Mad Men is a Korean War vet, and I was like, he said he was in Korea. Like, which conflict was that?
The Korean War.
There was a whole war there.
There was a whole war there. It's true.
Yeah.
Some would argue that it's technically not even over. That's a war that is still technically ongoing.
Most definitely is not. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got hella bases there.
Yeah. And there's a demilitarized zone between North and South Korea with American soldiers patrolling it on one side. So.
Yep.
But yeah, the Swede, he doesn't have any riches to take anymore, but he basically he's dipping out and just kind of on to the next thing.
Well, he almost, right? He starts leaving, and then he sees. See, that's why I'm not sure that it's implied that they get crushed by he sees like an army, like a convoy coming down the wagon trail, and then he turns around and like gallops full speed holding his rifle aloft, and yelling Companeros, Vámonos or whatever,
Vamos a matar, which I think the localization of that would be basically like, let's fuck them up, comrades.
Let's go and kill companions is apparently the literal
which
translation.
is yeah.
But yeah, right. So
and we get like a post-production slow motion, like telephoto shot of Franco Nero, heroically galloping. He's not galloping. He's on a horse that's galloping toward the camera.
He may have also been galloping.
And then they rotoscope it into like a cool looking, like totally stereotypical 70s, like red and black silhouette. Rotoscope.
But it is weird that they like give him this like grand, final shot that makes him look like a total badass. Yeah, but he's also like he was only in it for the money until like the last 10 seconds of the movie.
Yeah.
And
right.
He had to change it. He was convinced.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does have the powers to tear holes through brick walls, though.
That's right.
Yeah, right. Well, the other guy has the ability to make fruits and vegetables appear as if by magic.
So, is he the Kool-Aid Man?
Yes, that's right.
Is that the like?
Yep, it's the Kool-Aid Man power, just like in Deus
Kool-Aid
Ex.
Man throw
Human
vegetables at
Revolution.
people. I'm a little
In
behind on
Mario
my
2,
Kool-Aid
he
Man
does.
lore. Oh yeah, I guess that's true, but everybody does in Mario 2.
Yeah, but if Kool-Aid Man was in it, he would.
No, you're right. I got you.
Stop arguing. Oh, Jesus. Whatever,
This is
man.
a funny thing that my brain did on this Wikipedia article. We were talking before we started recording that this movie is like seems to be like mostly forgotten. Like this movie is not anyone that like who doesn't like follow 70s Italian cinema, I think would know about like the Man with No Name trilogy. But it seems to be like a pretty big production. I think it was like a co-production between a few countries. Like there was German funding involved. And there's some pretty big action set pieces, including one that we didn't talk about because it's in that like extended series of action vignettes where they're going back to Mexico where they blow up a bridge, and it definitely looks like some horses were harmed
in the making of this movie. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not killed, but they were very upset. And were actually falling off a bridge that had been blown up, because that's what they did in these movies. So I was looking at the Wikipedia, and I saw that it said that the box office of this movie was 1.451 billion, with the currency symbol that looks like it's a symbol for British pounds. I was like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? And I realized that was Italian lira.
That makes more sense.
That makes a lot
little
more
more
sense.
Yeah.
Just
It's
just a tad.
not the highest earning movie, number
history.
2 only to Avengers Endgame or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's a great movie.
I don't know that I would quite go to great, but I liked it. I had fun.
I enjoyed it, and I was prepared to not, because I'm not all that into westerns.
I like a good western, and I was like also just like, I mean, spaghetti westerns are so weird, right? Because they're usually shot in Spain, not in the U.S., definitely not in the American West.
Really?
Or yeah, sometimes in Italy, but I feel like most of them were shot in Spain, and they always have people of all different. I mean, that's the way that most Italian movies are, right? They're people who speak all different languages, and they speak their native language when they're filming, and then they overdub them with English voices or whatever. Like Karen Schubert, who plays the madam.
Piano.
She plays the madam, and she's a German actress. Like that's almost certainly not her voice that we hear coming out of her. But that's just like kind of how it went. So there's something sort of uncanny about a lot of those Italian movies of that era.
Yeah, although I think in this movie, Franco Nero, Italian, Tomas Milian, Cuban, Jack Palance, obviously American, and then Fernando Rey is Spanish, and then
Karen Schubert,
I don't
German.
know. I don't know if it's Iris Bourbon or Iris Bourbon, but it's
German.
Probably Iris Bourbon. Yeah, German.
Yeah, also German.
They all seem to be speaking English. I think it's just Karen Schubert who maybe is not.
Yeah, but I guess I've never heard Iris Bourbon speak with her normal voice, but I would be surprised if that is her voice. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Not that foreign actors can't do a good American accent sometimes, but usually if like British actors can pull it off a lot of times, but if your first language isn't English, it's hard to do a convincing American accent, I think, or Mexican accent, I guess, really.
Did we even mention that this is scored by Ennio Morricone?
We had not gotten to that, no, but it is. It is.
Yeah.
It's very similar to his Man with No Name scores, for sure.
Yeah, although the main theme of the movie, which is like the whole movie score, is basically just repeating the the motifs in the Vamos a Matar Companeros theme song.
Right.
It's more rock and roll than anything I think that's in those Eastwood movies.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
for sure. But yeah, I mean, I had fun with it. I think it's it's one of those. I mean, this is a movie I never would have watched probably if you hadn't suggested it. Because it's one of those things where, like, I do have an interest in exploitation films of this era. I love movies from the 70s. I do like westerns, but like this specific thing probably wouldn't have crossed my radar, unless you had said, let's watch this for the show.
Yeah, and I think it's not even if you had set out to watch some of these Zapata westerns. I think a couple that I just know the names of, although I haven't seen them, is A Bullet for the General. I think is probably like the one of greatest renown, or like maybe the greatest importance.
Yeah,
and apparently that's a great one to watch as a companion to this, according to my brother, who also likes these movies.
Yeah.
And then there's The Big Gun Down, which I had heard of. That one's got Lee Van Cleef in it. I'm not sure exactly how I've heard of that though. And Tomas Milian.
Because it has Lee Van Cleef in it, probably. I don't know. Like, this is one of those things where, like, yeah, if I was looking at Corbucci westerns, like, I would have watched Django or Navajo Joe, which is, again, features Burt Reynolds as a Native American.
Burt Reynolds? Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
And then, like, if I was looking at, maybe other Franco Nero, someone for a gift exchange at one point, someone gave me a DVD of Massacre Time, which is a Fulci Western starring Franco Nero that I actually still haven't watched. And that was like
I didn't know Fulci did Western.
He made like 2 or 3, with Franco Nero. And one, there were, I think one of his Westerns had, now I can't remember his name. The guy who plays Vasco is in one of them.
Tomas Milian.
Yeah, is in Four for the Apocalypse, which is a Fulci Western. So he made a couple. Yeah, he made a couple. And apparently they're just as violent as his horror movies. So, those are movies I would have watched. Like, I don't think if I was skimming a list of, like, oh, I want to watch something with Franco Nero, or I want to check out some of these lesser known, like, Corbucci Westerns, I don't think I would have landed on this one.
Yeah, it's not first on the list, even for the little mini genre that it's in.
Right. So
much less Franco Nero vehicles and Corbucci.
Right.
But yeah, I think the reason why I originally watched it is because, do you remember? I don't remember if it was actually. I think it may have been on the 42nd Street Forever series of DVDs.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Yeah, I think there was the trailer for this movie was on one of those, and the trailer, which Alex, it's this one that you watched.
Yeah.
The trailer like plays through the entire this like ridiculous Ennio Morricone song, and it's just like completely insane. You have no idea what's going on. But like a lot of weird shots.
A lot of movies, a lot of exploitation movies were sold on being like these almost fever dreams, right, in the trailer to try to get you to watch them, and then like you watch them and they're not like they're much more mundane than like what the trailer makes them look like.
Yeah, I feel like the other trailer that I saw on that DVD that was burned into my memory forever was a title that I can't say, The Legend of N-Word Charlie.
Oh yeah, right. That's
and I have no idea what that movie is like. I'm sure it is not as good as the trailer, which is incredible.
Wait, is that the one? Sorry, I think I might be confusing that with a different. Oh no, I'm thinking of there's a not. Oh my God, he was a actor, black actor, did a lot of blaxploitation movies, was in From Dusk Till Dawn because, Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez loved those old exploitation movies. Fred Williamson. But the one he's in that I'm thinking of is Boss N-word is the one that he was in.
Yes, yeah,
That's a different
and that
movie.
also has a pretty good trailer. But the other one, the N-word Charlie, I don't even like saying that.
Yeah, it's weird.
The Legend of etc.
Mm-hmm. The Legend of
It's
Charlie.
like the trailer is intense. Like, it does not seem like it's going to be a light experience whatsoever.
I'm curious to see what the trailer is, but there's no way in hell I'm gonna search for that on YouTube because of what that would do to my recommendation.
I mean, you could do it in
I could just save search.
Yeah, you might want to. Yeah.
Or like incognito, but still, I think I'm just gonna pass on the entire experience and take your word for it.
Yeah, it's a piece of art. The trailer. I have no idea what the content of the movie is.
The Legend of Nigger Charlie.
Apparently, there's a sequel called "The Soul of," etc., etc.
Okay.
So it spawned a franchise.
Yeah.
But that is also is also Fred Williamson, but it's a different movie than the one I was thinking of with they both are in the title.
Yeah. So the 42nd Street Forever DVD, there were I think I watched a bunch of the trailers on there, and the one of them that the other one that was burned into my memory forever was the one for Companeros, because it really is. The trailer is also a piece of art. And the movie is nothing like the trailer. Like, it's much more. The movie is not as action packed as the trailer, but I think the movie is also good. Maybe great is too much, but like, it's the easy comparison point is like some of the best movies ever made by one of the most celebrated filmmakers of all time. So. And it's like, derivative of the Man with No Name trilogy, but it's also, a proto, not buddy cop, but like a proto buddy action movie.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. It was. I don't know. I would recommend it. People who listen, like, I mean, I feel like at this point, if you've listened to this whole thing, if you'll just talk about it for 2 hours, I think.
You probably already watched it.
You watched it.
Yeah.
It's also on YouTube for free. It's with ads, unfortunately, but it's like actually a good transfer of it on YouTube.
Yeah, a surprisingly good transfer of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What's next? Do we know?
Well, I mean,
Bullet for the General?
At this point, April has become our annual Van Damme homage, and we get way more views on those than on anything else for some reason. So I think maybe it's time for another Van Damme movie. I don't know. We can talk about it though when we're out of here.
Yeah.
But before we go, any final thoughts, anyone, on Companeros or Franco Nero in general? I think that's the thing that the thing that I feel like we didn't do enough during our first 100 episodes when we were originally doing this as a podcast is that we didn't, for the most part, we didn't watch enough weird shit with like the B tier stars, right? We did like one Dudikoff movie. We never did a Cynthia Rothrock movie. We never did a Franco Nero movie. We did one Sho Kosugi movie, but we did a lot of Stallone, a lot of Schwarzenegger, Van Damme, whatever. And I mean, I still like those movies and I think they're worth talking about, but I do wish we had dug a little bit more into the weird stuff. And I feel like we have maybe been a little better about getting a little more weird this time around. So I'm glad we finally got to a movie starring Franco Nero, because he's one of those, second tier, he's famous among a certain group of people.
Yeah.
People like people who would do a show about action movies every month and used to do one every week or every other week, and it's people like Franco Nero and we still haven't done a Cynthia Rothrock movie. I watched Yes Madam last month, and there are parts where it drags a little bit, but man, young Michelle Yeoh and young Cynthia Rothrock just like kicking the absolute hell out of a bunch of people. Like the last fight scene in that movie, it's the action's choreographed by Yuen Woo-ping, who did like the Matrix. He obviously got way famous for doing the Matrix, but he choreographed the fight scenes in this movie, and like also they got a British woman to overdub Cynthia Rothrock's voice for some reason. It's just really weird. But it's just like there's this final fight in this like weird sort of like modern architecture style mansion with like a staircase with no banisters or railings and like water features, and people are getting kicked into all kinds of shit. It's just like, those are the kinds of movies that I feel like we should do more of. And I'm glad we did one like that, something a little more offbeat this month. So, but I don't know what we're going to do next month. I think we do have to go back to Van Damme, but we can talk about it when we're done. So.
Well, I think what we have to do is Van Damme actually has a new movie coming out this year. Minions: The Rise of Gru, the 5th film in the Minions franchise. He plays a character named Jean-Claude, like CLAWED.
Good.
So
what you're saying is we've got to prep for that by watching all the other
watching different
Minion-related
Michelle
movies.
Yeoh is also doing a voice in Minions: The Rise of Gru. So yeah, there you go.
go.
Like that's...
We can get Michelle Yeoh and JCVD on the same.
Annie Trejo's in there. There's other people who are like famous.
You know what, man? I don't at this point like
Dolph Lundgren's in it.
JCVD
as a member of the Vicious Six named Svengeance.
I can't blame those guys for taking.
I'm in.
That's the stupidest thing.
Absolutely.
Like I know that movie's not good. It's not out, but I know it's not good.
Absolutely cannot blame those dudes for taking a paycheck for doing it though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But like actually, that does make me think.
Like it's written for people like us at this stage who would never go see a movie like that voluntarily.
Yeah. But that does kind of make me feel like we did one of the Universal Soldier sequels during our original run, but we never did the original Universal Soldier. Maybe we should do that next time, since we're talking about Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren.
Did you do the one with Goldberg in it?
No, we did the one where Scott Adkins punches a bowling ball into dust. Just sick as fuck. It's a weird ass movie. It's like somebody... it was Peter Hyams, I think, made that Universal Soldier sequel, and it's like very weird. It's almost like an art film in some moments, but also it has Scott Adkins punching a bowling ball into dust, and it has JCVD like painted up like Colonel Kurtz at the end of Apocalypse Now in it for some reason. It's fucking wild. It's a weird ass movie, but it's fun. But yeah, I kind of feel like we should maybe do the first one. I don't know.
Yeah, I've never seen the first one. It feels weird to pass over a movie that has Bill Goldberg in it, but also maybe I don't want to watch that now that I'm like saying that out loud.
I've heard that movie is... I didn't even see that at the time. The only thing I remember about that movie is, one, it was promoted on Nitro a whole bunch because Bill Goldberg was in it, and two, Megadeth had a song on the soundtrack. That's all I remember about that movie. So, but we can talk about this stuff off air. I think that's going to do it for the action cast for this month, but we should be back next month. We missed February, scheduling conflicts, but we're planning to be back next month, and we'll see you then, listeners.
The 1994 film Street Fighter.
We did like a live riff on that at PAX one year, didn't we? And then I don't know what happened to the audio or if it ever got posted, but
if we did, I didn't do that.
Yeah, I think we did.
We've
with
definitely
Kat,
watched that.
and I think Kat was there for that even.
What did happen to that?
I don't know. I don't have it as far as I'm aware.
Did you dream that? I think you dreamed that. Let's go to bed. Speaking of dreams,
I have it checked off in my brain as we've done that, but
you're lying.
I'm pretty sure Kat and Emily and I think Abby was there for that.
What have you done to my brain, Joe?
Power suggestion.
I wasn't there and I didn't hear it, so it was never released.
It was never released, therefore.
I think we might have just decided that the Super Mario Brothers and Hard to Kill ones were such fucking train wrecks that we just weren't going to release it. I don't know. I don't remember. But anyways.
Well, Let's do it.
We're out of here. We will see all you
You're
fine
outta here.
people. I am.
Get out of here.
I'm out of here. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Get out of here, everybody.